Next, we want the fish to grow after eating some food. So let's go to fish, click on this node, and we'll rename it to fish sprite. And then we'll click here to go to its script. And then let's create a reference for the images that we want to use for the fish as it grows. Export, variable, images, and this will be an array. And the array will contain images. It'll be like this. So you can see the type when you hover over it, compressed texture 2D. Save, and now we can see it on the side. And now we can add to it. So click on that. And then go to the file system. And then you can actually select all three like this. I'm holding down Shift as I click on it. And drag and drop it here. So now the array contains these three images. And now we'll do a function to set the image of the sprite to one of these. So we'll do func set image, and we'll put the index here, and then texture equals images index. We can already use this by doing it at the start. So func ready, and then set image 0. So remember, the starting element of an array will have 0 as its index, as you can see here. So when we start the fish, we want it to be this small fish image. So it calls the set image function, it tells it to use this index, and it just sets it to that. Okay, let's try that. And that's working fine. And next, we want to have a way to change this based on how much food the fish has eaten. We'll create a new variable here, food counter, and we'll set it to 0. And then we'll make a function here called grow. And every time this function is called, we'll add 1 to the food counter. So you can do food counter equals food counter plus 1. Or as a shortcut to this, you can just do this, food counter plus equals 1. It'll just add 1 to the current value of food counter. And then let's say if food counter is equal to 10, meaning the fish already ate 10 pieces of food, then we'll set image to 1. Else if food counter is equal to, let's say 25, then we'll set image to 2. Save that, and then go back to the fish area script. And first we'll need a reference to the fish sprite. So just do export, variable, fish sprite, and put the node type, which is sprite 2D. Save that. And making sure this node fish area is clicked, you can now assign the fish sprite. You can just drag and drop fish sprite node into there. And then when the fish eats the food, you can call fish sprite dot grow. So when it eats the food gets deleted, and then we play the sound, the chomping sound, and then we'll call this function fish sprite grow. It'll add 1 to the food counter, and then depending on what the food counter value is, it can change the image of the fish. So let's save it and try it. And there we go. It ate 10 pieces of food and it grew bigger. Let's do 25 pieces of food. And there we go. Next, we want to add a way for the fish to automatically look for food and eat food even when the mouse is not in the water. So we want it to have that automatic behavior on its own. So we'll go to fish and we'll add another condition here. So else if, and then remember when we put the food in the group, so just go to food script quickly. We added it to this group, right? So now we need to know, is there any food in the water? So we'll do get tree dot get nodes in group, and we'll check if there's at least 1 piece of food in the water. We'll make the fish go to that food. So we'll get the first piece of food in this list. And just copy and paste. Since this is actually an array, you can just get index 0 to get the first piece of food. And then global position equals lerp, global position, and then target food dot global position 0.02. Save and try that. So when the mouse is in the water, it's just following the mouse. And that kind of works, but we have to correct some things. We have to make the fish face the correct direction again. So we have to go to the fish sprite script, and we'll actually have to transfer some of this functionality into the fish script. So we'll get this one, copy that, go to fish, put it here, and do else. We do have to create a reference to the fish sprite here. So drag and drop, hold down controller command, copy that, paste it here, and then do the same thing here. Copy this, paste it here, and make sure to change this one to target food dot global position dot x. And then going back to fish sprite, you can actually just put if flip h, delete this, and unindent, remove this, and unindent. So going back to the fish script. So if the mouse is to the right of the fish, then we'll make the fish face the right. And if not, it'll face left. And same thing for here. If the target food is to the right of the fish will face right. And if not, the fish will face left. And going back to the fish sprite script, we're just checking if it's flipped or not. And if it's flipped, we'll move the collision shape based on the image width. Now let's save and try that. So that's working much better. Let's go back to fish script. Since this code is kind of repetitive, we're doing a lot of the same things here and here, we can actually just create a separate function to handle this and shorten our code. So we can do func flip fish sprite, and we'll input the target position. And we'll copy and paste from here. So if, and we'll use the argument that we defined here, if target position dot x is greater than global position dot x, then we'll just flip the fish sprite. Make sure to unindent, unindent, and unindent. And then instead of all of this, we can remove all of that and we can just put flip fish sprite, and then we'll input the target position. So it's this one, target food global position, copy and paste. And same thing for here. We can remove all of this and just call our function flip fish sprite and input the target position. And I personally just like to make a comment if I'm calling a function from a process function. Okay, so let's try that. And yep, that's still working well.